Eleanor kept talking about, she just said, you just need to do a separate piece on Franklin. She's like, you should just do a separate piece on him. Like, everybody...
Eleanor Cooper said that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm surprised that.
She's like, you should do 2 parts on it, which is not, it's not my decision at all. It's completely up to the editor. But everybody just talked very highly of you and very highly of what everyone is doing. And it was clear the passion that everybody had for this.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to call it a project, because it's a lot more than just a project. It's this movement.
We hope it's a movement. We really do.
So...
but if you hadn't talked to all of them, and by talking to all of them, and of course, I know you were having trouble understanding what I was saying. I think you were having trouble understanding what I was saying. What I was saying was not that Teresa and I didn't start it here.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't saying that. We did.
Mm-hmm.
And Teresa and I even had our house made before it was done in such a manner that we could have those 60 people.
Okay.
You know, making it for 30 and then inviting 60.
Mm-hmm.
And we were thinking of it as we talked to the Coopers. However, we found the Coopers were also feeling exactly like we were. My whole point is, there have been so many stories written about me.
Mm-hmm.
As an old high school principal in St. Louis, I understood the positive effect of a principal being in front of that school,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole student body and the faculty and the community, and having the stories written about him or her and getting out there in the public, because that was so important and so necessary, and you really did need a standard bearer. Here, the important thing is exactly what's happened. It's spread. And if it continues to be Franklin McCauley, then people have missed the point. This thing is spreading. Yeah, we started it. I guess the nicest thing that's ever been said about us is you and Teresa came in, saw a need, and did something. Okay, I accept. And I really feel very gratified about it. Yeah, we saw the need. Yeah, what are we going to do? Oh, we sure got a need here. And sit back? And some people have said, well, but everybody else has sat back. Everybody hadn't sat back. There are things going on all over the city. These people over here, the missionaries to the south side, the Leopolds, they've been here for years doing things, you know. But this was a little bit different. But if it continued to be the same story, that's not the story now, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I have been getting concerned about that and feeling, I want people to understand. What's happened is, when the four of us said, you know what, everywhere we go, it's all black and a few white, or it's all white and a few black. What's going on? Is this a sign of something else going on? Yeah, it's a sign of something. Well, let's do something about it. Mm-hmm. People have picked up and done something about it. That's the story now. Even to the fact that we've got either 16 or 18 cities that we've heard from following the CBS thing. That's really true. In fact, so many we can't really keep up with, and don't plan to try to keep up. We're not. You know, we didn't put that toolkit on the air with ChattanoogaConnected.com. We didn't put that whole story of us and the toolkit, i.e. how we did it, what you can do, so that we can keep up with them. Mm-hmm. And if they keep writing us, we'll contact them. Mm-hmm. We put it so they could start and go, because our desire is to continue here and let them go where they are. Now, people want to write us and say, okay, so we had a meeting, now what? We'll write back and say, well, how about a second mm-hmm. meeting? You know, what are you doing? How'd it go? You know, and so on. That's where we wanted to go. And that's the story, to me.
So well, and I agree. I agree. Especially, and that's yeah. And I didn't want you to think that it was always just about you. I mean, when I pitched it, yes, it was about you. But I also knew that there were that it was getting bigger and that it was gaining popularity. So I mean, I think it solidified when I came here, and then when I met with each group to interview them, because and even in Stacy Lightfoot as well, because I met her for lunch.
Aren't they great?
Yes.
Isn't great?
And Stacy I knew from high school.
Oh, did you?
We weren't friends in high school, but
Where'd you go?
CSAS.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
She's
great.
a couple years younger than me, but her sister was in my grade, and her sister was friends with my sister in high school, and so Stacy and I reconnected actually through this. So, and our boys go to kindergarten over at Battle. So, but it's interesting because there's just this, to me, and I feel a little cynical saying this, but you don't see a lot of passion like that. Or maybe we're just not looking in the right places. There's a lot of passion for this, for what you guys are doing.
This group, this leadership group we've got now of 30 of us, 31, 32 of us, I think now. This has become the microcosm of the macrocosm we wanted to build. Every time we meet, we have more fun. We have more energy. We met at Mel's and Eleanor's on Saturday the 19th, just, 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. It was super. It is so much fun. The richness that Teresa and I have found in our lives back here, we expected to find a richness coming back to family. Mm-hmm. When we got back here and realized the situation and knew what we were going to do, we didn't realize how rich our lives were going to be from Stacy and others like Stacy. My gosh, Stacy is a unbelievable person. Mm-hmm. The passion, the energy, the intelligence, the loveliness, everything about her. Mm-hmm. is just, and all the others you talk to, mm-hmm. well, they're terrific. Van and Dee Hinton, we don't know them as well. They hadn't been able to, they're taking care of her mother, mm-hmm. who's going through some stages and so they hadn't been to everything. But when they're there, my goodness, their ideas, their thoughts, their input. And this whole, anyway, we have met some just dynamite people. And
he in particular, I mean, everybody else left. I asked him if he had a few more minutes, and we probably stayed another hour and a half.
He says 2. He says we had another 2-hour talk.
No, maybe it was. Yeah, maybe it was. I mean, I've got most of it on tape. I would stop it when we stopped talking about this, and we would just chit chat about lots of different things. And some of the other stuff that he's doing that I would like to find out more about. But and another thing I noticed too was that everybody was so honest, and that was nice. Oh, what I remember now that I was going to say about so when I met with Eleanor and Dolly and Catherine at Panera, it was like a mini Chattanooga Connected. Yeah. Like that, because they started talking, I just kind of backed off and let them talk, and Dolly would talk about, they would just, it's almost like they quizzed each other and asked each other, and, well, what do you mean by that? Well, I didn't know you felt like that, and blah, 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 blah. And Dolly was very, I was encouraged, who was this? I think Stacy encouraged me to reach out to Dolly. She's like, you need to really talk to her and hear her story. And it was interesting. And then with Bill and everybody else, it was more like they talked about the group. They talked about, Bill's like, you should check this out. You need to read this, watch this documentary. They talked a little bit about how they came into it. It was just different, but it was great, and I don't know if this will wrap it up or not. I mean, I've got to transcribe all this, but also kind of put it together and then see what kind of holes I have. I don't know. It's been. Now
you mentioned the honesty. I'll give you something that I'm very gratified by,
okay,
and that I do feel I have something to do with. I've given my talk to the NAACP Youth Conference, 500 people in St. Louis and many other places. By gosh, I was just talking about you and saying wonderful things about you guys, and I'm gonna quit. And I'm on tape right here, and I don't know that I even like the Leopolds anymore. Hi guys. They are. There's some people say they're Christians. Those people are Christians. They really are. They're people that talk, and they're people that do. And those people do. They're fearless in going in and helping people, whoever they are. Mm-hmm. They just go help people, and they're wonderful. But anyway, here's what I was saying. So I was giving these talks, and black people would come up to me. They did in St. Louis. They have in Athens, Georgia. They have here. And they say, I've never heard a white person be that honest about how bad things were and what he did to make them bad. And my answer always is, well, that's how racist I was. That's how racist our whole culture was. That's what I saw. They say, yeah, but white people don't often say that. They don't admit it. They don't apologize. They don't. Oh, a few people say, I'm sorry that we had slavery. Well, I wasn't even talking about slavery. I mean, I apologize for slavery, too, for all my white ancestors and for all the whites down there. I'm talking about Jim Crow. I'm talking about segregation. I'm talking about black people sitting on the back of the bus. When I was 10, standing up on the front of the bus or sitting at the front of the bus, all those people, and I knew it, and I didn't care. I'm talking about that. And I say, listen, white privilege is, we didn't care because we didn't have to. You didn't matter. And according to Noah cursing Ham in the Bible, because Ham laughed at his father's drunken nakedness, black people are supposed to be the servants of white people. We thought that. I was taught that in my church. So we didn't care. And that's still white privilege. White privilege is, unless somebody wants to care about black people or low economic people or whoever, they don't care. Move on with their life. Bothering me? Nope, not bothering me. And sure, it bothers them. They don't know that. I didn't realize how much I was hurting with black people hurting so badly. I didn't understand how it was affecting me. I didn't understand that at 20 years of age I was going to cry ashamed for what I had done, for my complicity in Jim Crow and the laws and putting down black people. But when I say it to black people today, they say, gosh, we didn't expect it. And so when we started here in our house, I would start with one of those stories. And if there's anything I think I've done, it is the honesty which with these meetings, we got two rules. Be honest, be courteous. Be honest, be courteous. That's the rules. That's all. Oh, excuse me. No politics, no religion. And I don't serve anything like alcohol. I don't need somebody who's been drinking a little bit of wine get cantankerous. We don't need that in here.
Right.
We need honesty and courtesy.
I think I know the answer to this, but out of curiosity, it was one of the things that came to my mind when I came was, why no religion? Because religion sometimes seems to play a part in it.
Oh, plays a lot of part. Plays a big part. And I mention a religious tenet when I say that my church taught me that in the story of Noah, in the story of Ham laughing at Noah's drunkenness in his tent, and Noah was naked, and Noah waking up and having his other two sons say, hey, do you know what Ham did to you? And when I tell that story, that's a tenet of religion. I understand that. What I was trying to do there was to say, here's a big, when blacks say, how could you all do this? I need to say, you need to understand, for those of us who were very religious, we heard this all the time in our church. But I do not want to get into a discussion of religion today because of everybody who's in their various religions. And boy, we could go, we could go anywhere. I mean, if I were to offer a prayer, whose name am I going to pray in?
Right.
And all of that. And it isn't that anybody can't go out and talk about religion, or that somebody can't say, I am religious, I just want you to know. That's fine. That's fine. But I don't want, if we get into a religious discussion about what this person believes, what this person believes, then we won't get around to what are black and white? How are black and white separate? How can we come together? Now, somebody can say, we ought to bring them to our church. Great. Terrific. And people say that. Ought to bring them to our church. That's great. That's terrific. But other than that, people have seemed to understand that there's an unwritten that people understand. Oh, yeah, if I start talking about, and people who have thanked me have been our Jewish friends. We had you weren't here, but we had a wonderful, I don't want to tell that story.
You can if you want. I'd like to hear it.
You would like to hear this story. We have a wonderful black friend who is a wonderful singer. She's an opera singer. Mm-hmm. She came to one of our first meetings in 2013, either the August one or the September ones. And my wife is in silver sneakers with her at the Y, and found out she sings opera. She also sings in a church choir, a white church choir, largely white. So we had said to her, will you sing some arias for us? I was kidding her. I want to hear. I mean, we saw her around here. She lives right down the street. Will you sing an aria for us? And she said, and so, well, she came to one of those meetings, and she said, okay, I'll sing for you. And she sang a wonderful aria, opera aria. Nothing religious. It was just, and it was at the end of the meeting, and it was great. It was, somebody entertained us with a great piece of music. 2 years later, she's back. We asked different people. So this time she comes back, and she said, I'll sing for you again. Well, this time she sings a beautiful gospel song, and in this song, the name of Jesus. And I've forgotten what the name of the song, but the refrain is over and over. Let it be Jesus. Let it be Jesus. Let it be Jesus. Well, now, I've already put out, we're not doing, and then she ends, I say, our friend's going to end the evening with, and it ends with this song. And I had people looking at me, what, Franklin, have you changed? What, are you ending your meeting with let it be Jesus? What are the answers to everything? Let it be Jesus. Is that what you're saying? And as she's singing, I'm thinking, okay, no way, I know what she's doing. I mean, she didn't mean to be doing anything to us. She's singing a song for us. It happens to be how she sees things. I'm not telling you, that isn't what she believes. That is. But at the end of the song, I thanked her. And I said, I want everybody to know, we asked our friend to share with us her beautiful voice. And that's what she's done. Now, she shared it with something she believed. But what we wanted was her beautiful voice and her gift of voice and singing. That's what we've accepted here tonight. I want everybody to know that. The first people that met me right down there at the stairs were a Jewish couple who said, we're real glad you said that, because we were becoming confused about what your meeting was. I said, oh no, that was, and I appreciate your accepting her gift. And I said, now this is a belief she has. I didn't deny her belief. I said, but the gift she gave us was her song. Mm-hmm. And but I, for a few minutes, I was thinking, Oh, I know this song. I know what the refrain is. It's said about 10 times. You can't get any more spewing. You can't get any more religious than that, I guess. But
I'm curious about what you said about your house. Can you tell me a little bit about how long you've been in this house? Like, how old is this house? Because I'm curious. And like, so you came in and renovated it and kind of had in mind that you were going to do these.
Oh yeah, we did. The house is probably 1910. I'll tell you why I have to say probably. It can be 1910 to 1920, something like that. Could be 1905, but the reason, and it was built in this area, and it's old, and it's 3 bricks thick. I mean, it really is old. When we saw it, though, it was dilapidated and deteriorated, and we didn't know at the time, but it was foreclosed on and sat empty for 2 years. At least that's what we were told. Now, the reason we don't know the records is because the records in Chattanooga burned either in 23 or 27. I've had 2 different, so we can't really tell. We go in, and it's a drop ceiling, 8-foot ceiling, and there's trash, and there's this and that inside, and it looks terrible. And my next door neighbor is my cousin, and he's the one that said, you really ought to look at this house. It's for sale by C&E. And they've got a really nice price on it because it's in bad shape. And we go in, and it's got a little parlor here in the front and a little living room next to it, and then a kitchen that's really bad. Well, we had the whole, so we look at it, and we've got a decision to make. We bought it in 2011. We were still living in St. Louis. But we bought it because we said, this is the kind of neighborhood we want to live in. Black, white, Hispanic, Iraqi refugees over here, Somali refugees over here. At the time, we thought this was going to be somebody's house, this church on Main. Somebody had bought it to do that with. And we decided that's the kind of neighborhood we want to live in. And if we move in and fix up this house, we will help stabilize things. Well, that isn't exactly how regentrification goes. You move in and you fix up a house, and all of a sudden you've made it, the taxes go up, and we can't do anything about that. But so what we did was, we bought it in 2011. We had it torn down to the studs in the fall of 2011, and then we waited almost the next year while we got our black contractor, because we wanted Bobby Adamson, black contractor, good reputation. But if you don't get a black contractor, you don't get black workers. That's the way it is, that we found out in construction. And in going in and looking at the place, we decided the kind of thing. We tore this whole porch was torn off, and we had it, and where you and I are sitting, you and I couldn't be sitting this way. It ended right there. I mean, we'd be over here. And I said, I can't even cross my legs and I need more space here so I can do exactly what we're doing and having people out here and so. We lived a half block away over on Mitchell. And during that year, before we had an architect, he's white, young white architect, Thomas Palmer, did a terrific job. While we're having it designed and looking at what we want to do after it's torn down to the studs, we're going to venues like the Bessie Smith and other places. It's during that year that we see there's this great barrier. So now we look at this place as we're getting it built back, and there's a wonderful pocket door, a beautiful pocket door between the living room and the parlor. And it comes out about 4 feet here and 4 feet here, which means you only got about an 8-foot opening here. And as we think about what we want to do, we realize that's antithetical to what we want to try to do. It will block we've got to have this thing open. And we made that decision based on how we wanted to have these meetings. And family meetings also. Family events. Now that was part of the McCauley family. We've got 30 members of our family in this town. So we wanted to have big events. But the family was only half of it. The other half was, we're going to start having some meetings and bring people together. On the day before, Bobby had to say to us, okay, you're either leaving those things or taking them out. My wife looked at those beautiful pocket doors and said, rip them out. Because if we have those, that will defeat our purpose of having these larger meetings. When we took it out, we realized the place, if we put wall-to-wall chairs around, little fold-up chairs, we could only get about 30. And I realized immediately 30 wasn't going to do it for me. 60 sounded like a good number. And I wanted 60 because I felt like if we put, like you saw, the chairs like this, we can get people out eyeball to eyeball. Really, we wanted people in there. We wanted people to walk in, which has happened. Charlie, the most amazing thing, black and white people walk in. And I may have told you this. I'll say it again. One of the nights we had 60 people. The last black man in looks in. He comes in because and there's a white man that follows him. They're not together. And the black man looks in and says, he sees 30 white people, or 29 at that time. He says, you mean you've got this many white people who care about this subject? And the white man follows him. Now, I'm there at the door meeting and greeting. And he comes in, he looks, and he says, you know this many black people? And those two statements are exactly representative of the problem. Black people hadn't felt, they don't trust white people to be concerned. And white people are just amazed when anybody knows any more than one black person. And that night, that's the night I said, okay, white folks, how many of you have black friends? Good black friends. 2 whites raise their hand. 2 out of 30. And then I say, okay, black folks, how many of you have good white friends? 11 people raised their hand. But then they said to him, one of the black guys said, but we don't invite them to our home. And then all the rest of the black people said, everybody said, no, we don't invite them. I said, why? I said, because we don't trust each other. Because we don't, no, black people said, we don't trust you guys. White people said, we want to be with groups that we feel comfortable with. We said, Teresa and I have taught in all black schools. We've been with all black. We're still at that point where we're saying, what? You don't feel comfortable with black friends? What are you talking about? We have to go back in our minds to the time when I entered the Howard High School halls and found myself one of 10 whites and 1,300 black people. And I looked around and realized, you know what, I really am. I'm one of few white people. That lasted maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month. And after that, it was over. Hi!
Just want to come over and say hello.
How are you?
I heard that things at St. Paul's went really well. A lot of people said that was okay.
They did. Hey there.
Hi.
I just
How you
wanted to,
doing?
this is Francis McCaw. This is
I'm
Kari.
Hi, Kari. Franklin McCauley.
Nice to meet you.
And Charlie Moss, my friend.
Hi, Charlie. Good to meet you. Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Kari teaches English at GPA.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Teaches English at G. We are blood brothers. Did you know that? You know who founded that school?
Your family?
My great aunts.
Oh, wow.
You see the picture up in front when you go in the auditorium?
Mm-hmm.
Grace McCauley, all the white
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah.
two. Grace McCauley was my great aunt. Eula Jarnigan was her cousin.
Uh-huh.
They're the two. Grace was the one who said to my grandfather, my great uncle, in 1904-05, obviously you're going to make McCauley a co-ed school.
Uh-huh. And they wouldn't.
They said, obviously we're not.
Mm-hmm.
They said, well, then we will form our own school. And they did it because they were teaching.
Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they?
The mission was to bring men into education. They were feeling bad about the South and the education. Listen, during Civil War times, Southerners sent their kids to England.
Huh.
Did you know that?
Oh.
Yeah, sent their sons to England to get their education.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, because we didn't have the same kind of education the old New England schools had.
Well, that makes
Harvard, 1636.
Yeah.
You know, all that. So, oh yeah. So, and one of their girlfriends, they were all teaching over at Chattanooga High.
Mm-hmm.
Chattanooga High, Chattanooga Public School System did not offer a science course which would allow girls to go to college. They hadn't been to college, is my understanding. So they went to the Board of Education and petitioned a science course that would allow girls to go to college. The Board of Education said, no, girls don't need that. And they said, we will form girls preparatory school.
Huh.
And they make it, and I'll tell you one more thing, and then I'm going to get back to Charlie. We're doing
Sorry,
an interview.
Charlie.
It's okay.
When they got through the school year, 1905, they took her house, Grace McCauley's house, and transformed it to a school. One house down on, I think it was on Oak Street, probably. And the newspaper article about what they were doing was, can you believe these three women are nailing and sawing and hammering and making that was the new, it wasn't. They're making a school with curriculum. That wasn't it. I've seen the article. It's, in fact, you've got it over there. Don't say I, say we. It was written by my cousin, Eleanor Macaulay
Don't
Cooper.
say I, say we.
Don't say I, say we. It's in, Autumn Graves has a copy.
Okay.
Little book. And it's
Yeah.
the first few years, 1906, 1918. Eleanor did the research. And it was one of the women saying to Grace, don't say I, say we. And that was, so we're very proud. Listen, the Macaulay family is very proud of GPS. But we don't talk about it very much because Macaulay has our name.
Right.
And GPS doesn't. People don't know that. People don't know usually that Macaulay family had anything to do with that.
I went to Howard for years.
Oh, really?
Well, I went to my father in 1968. He said, I'd love to come back to Macaulay. I want to come back too. But you got integrated. He said, no, and I went to Howard.
Huh.
And had a wonderful experience at Howard.
What'd you teach?
English.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I feel an affinity with you.
Oh.
She's in the Oedipus cycle right now.
I'm teaching the Oedipus cycle.
Oh, good,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Teaching a bunch of girls about what the
About incest.
English teacher,
Complexes.
GPS, way to go.
Great to meet
Good to see
you.
Good to see y'all. Good to
Sorry
see
to
you.
interrupt.
That's okay.
It's okay. Good to see you. And my best to Autumn Graves.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
Also, if you get in the main office, give Cheryl my love.
Chris?
Yeah, Cheryl Chris. I love her. She's been great. I'm a high school principal, and I know how important the high school principal's secretary
Oh,
is.
yeah, she's a busy woman. She
Yeah.
keeps Autumn straight.
Good to see y'all. Thanks. A neighbor I just met today.
He looks familiar to me.
Any rate, okay. I've got to do it. And you have to.
I have. Well, tell me about Tyner. Tell me about when you taught, I like that. What you were telling me about, you wanted to go teach at Macaulay and...
Howard, you mean?
Well, but
Oh.
you would come, originally you were going to teach at Macaulay though, but you wanted to integrate.
All I wanted to, my father to do was integrate. It was 1968. It's 14 years after the Supreme Court decision of Topeka versus the board. Now, that was meant for public schools. It wasn't meant for, the law didn't mandate private schools to do that. But this 14 years after the public schools were supposed to be integrated. Of course, Howard wasn't integrated. Riverside wasn't integrated. They were both black schools. And any rate, so I went to him. We had, 10 different arguments the summer of '68. Talked about it. And finally, on that last day, on the last day that we had to talk about it, that's when he came down with his fist on his coffee table and hit that coffee table so hard I thought he was going to bust his fist or the coffee table himself. And he yelled at me very loudly. We're sitting this close, and he yells so that you can hear it over here at the church on Main. And what he says to me is, why are you all saying the same thing to me? Only it's a shout, it's a yell. And I say back to him, Dad, only I yell at him. He's yelling at me, I yell at him. I was very, very respectful of my father. But when he yelled at me, I could yell at him. I said, Dad, you taught us the philosophy And he knew what I meant. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Jesus Christ appealed to worked for, served everyone. I mean, he's the one that taught us that. Then you taught us the philosophy. We're just implementing it. And he got real quiet. He sat back like he had heard it for the first time in his life. See, I remembered in 1961 when I heard black people for the first time in my life. I heard it. I finally understood racism. Well, I thought, super, he's got it now. He looked at me. We can't do that. Those people can't do our work. I said, Dad, you never met those people. You don't know those people. You don't know one. You don't really know one black person. See, yeah, mother rushed in. Mother who never yelled. My mother who never yelled. She rushed in. She said, she yelled at me. She said, you cannot come up here and talk to your father anymore about race. You can come here, you can be with us, but you can't talk to your father about race anymore. It's over. So I went to Howard. My goodness, they accepted me. They hired me. And for the next year, I couldn't talk to my father about race. Now here I was 28 years old. I wanted to share what was going on with my parents. I wanted to talk about everyday things that, he's Headmaster McCauley. I'm a teacher. I'm an English teacher in the high school. This is the time for us to be talking. But couldn't do it. So we, now do you want any more of that story?
Yeah, I like it.
During that year, it was Moses Freeman who really put his arms around me and brought me in. It was Moses who, as much as everybody was nice to me, everybody was lovely to me. I had, the very next year, during the senior year, I had one class that I had as juniors and seniors. And there were 6 or 7 of them who were having trouble with me as the only white they knew who they could take out their stuff on. And some of those I had to talk to, and I had to get a counselor to talk to. That was the only rough spot I had. 6, 7, 8 of the brightest students in the school who were trying to say what they thought about race, and I'm the only white man they know, so they say it to me. And eventually, in the middle of class, I said to him one time, you know what? You only have one white man you can talk to. You're going to have to get this out with your counselor. You go talk, get it out with him, then come back. Let's have class. So that was, when I say the whole experience was great. That was a little bit tough, but during my first year there, everybody's lovely to me. There wasn't a teacher, there wasn't anybody who was mean to me, and I'm having a great experience teaching. And we get to May of '69, my first year, end of the year, '69. And I'm up in my classroom. We don't have phones like this. I'm up in my classroom. And the kid runs up to my classroom at the end of the day, 3:15. School's over. And he runs in, he said, Mr. McCauley, Mr. Freeman wants you. Mr. Freeman wants you. Well, Moses Freeman wants me. My good friend wants me. So I run down to the office. I get the phone. I said, Moses, yeah, Franklin. He says, Franklin, we're on a march. We're marching so-and-so's school. And he tells me the school. It's a public school in the area, and I don't want to say which one. But it's a largely white school with some black population. Maybe 30 kids, 100 kids, 50 kids. And he says, we're marching because the principal at school has been mistreating black kids, been unjust to black kids. And I say, the first thing I think is, oh, geez, the principal at school is my father's best friend among public high school people. He really is. I mean, they're close. And Moses guy, he said, we need more white people. We need more white people in this march. So if I'm going to go in that march, I'm marching against my father's best friend among high school principals in Chattanooga. Jeez. But Moses is calling me and said, we need more white people. I know what he's talking about. If you're talking about civil rights and black people carrying all the burden, that's not fair. We're the ones who caused it. I better get in this thing. And Moses is calling me. He's alerted me. I said, where are you? He said, we're right over on 3rd Street at Riverside. I said, I'll come. I jump in my car, boy, and get over. There are 96 black people in a long line marching. Moses is at the end waiting for me. There aren't any white people in that line at all. And I look at that, I go to Moses, I say, Moses, you say you need more white people. He said, we do. We need more white people. I said, Moses, you need one white person. He laughed. He said, that's what I said. We need more white people. I said, Moses, this black math, one more. And he said, I need you. Now, here's what had happened. Moses looked at this crowd. They'd already marched from Orchard Knob. He needed white people. He only knew one white person he could get. And he trusted I was going to get in there, and he called me. I don't know where he called from. He stopped somewhere and called me from it. I got there, and I realized that's what Moses had done. Moses checked through in his mind every white person he knew who was amenable to the situation and found none of them were going to get in that march, except one person, Frank McCullough, would get in his march with. So when I got over there, I realized he had called me because he trusted. See, trust is the big issue between black and white. With black for white. You guys, you white guys act one way when you're with just us black guys. Then you get with whites, man, you act a different way. And Moses was saying to me, I called you because I know you understand the problem with injustice to black kids, and you'll get in this thing with us. And as I listened to him, I mean, he didn't say that to me. He called me to get in the march. I knew that. And I got in the march. He knew I'd get in. I got in the march. Up front, the TV cameras were going. They had everybody there, the first 15 people, and they put the TV cameras down. They're about ready to get in their car or their truck. And they look back here, and there's this little white face. They came to me, they put that TV camera right in front. And I thought, oh my goodness. Anyway, but they did. So, we go on down, we get to City Hall. City Hall. I've got the picture. The kids are standing up. The younger people stand up on City Hall steps. Moses and I are over here. There's a picture that is taken. And you can see this one white guy, but you got to look hard to know who he is. In fact, he's a white guy, truthfully. But I'm over there in Battle, H.H. Battle, for whom the Academy's named, the preacher. Younger then, of course. And he's speaking. And he gives a great talk about how our black kids have to be treated fairly. And he gives this long time, and everybody's with him, and yeah. Then he says, now I'm going to take this mic, because they had a portable mic. I'm going to take this mic and hand it to young brother so-and-so, so-and-so. And he says, I still remember his name. And he says, I'm going to hand it. And I know he's going to say the right thing. Now, the minute he said that, I knew this guy wasn't going to say the right thing. This is going to be bad. This is going to be bad. And sure enough, that guy grabbed that microphone. First thing he said, we're going to crush the mayor's neck. We're going to stomp him. And he started. This is Chattanooga in 1969. This isn't New York City. This isn't Chicago. This is, and that wasn't what had happened out at that high school. This guy had made it. The mayor's doing it. The mayor wasn't doing this. The mayor wasn't, and so on. Anyway, I thought, oh my goodness, this is not good. I signed on for what Battle said. They are right. Every kid at that school ought to be there. I didn't sign on for what they're going to say about Chunk Bender. They called him Chunk. That was his nickname. And I thought, this isn't good. But it's okay. So anyway, so we went on. We went home. And next morning, I'm reading that paper. And I got that paper. And on the front page, there's a story. It's about, I don't know, about like this. There's a story in it. It says, black folks, black people, black citizens protest so-and-so school. And you open it up, and there are two long collars that go here, like this, right? And they're on the inside. And they go from here all the way down, two long collars. And it's got every word that kid said. And I'm reading it, and I'm thinking, well, it's terrible. It's a terrible article. But at least, the picture doesn't really show me very well. And and it isn't that I've cared that I was in the protest. Do the protest. Put me in. But not that.
Right.
And then I get the last paragraph, and it really did. It said, there was one white marcher, Franklin McCauley, a teacher at Howard High School. And I thought, oh, my goodness. Oh, wow. And that's when the phone rang, 6:15 in the morning. And as I've said to other people, the man on the other end didn't say, hi, son. He didn't say, hello, Franklin, how you doing? He didn't say, good morning. He just started off, this is terrible. That's awful. You've ruined yourself. It's through for you. You have no credibility left. Nobody likes you. And I really did want to say Moses still likes me, but that discretion is the better part of it. You don't tell your father that at the time. And I got off, and I was hurting. I was hurting a lot. Tears coming out of my eyes. This is my dad telling me that it's all over for me. And regardless of what it was a hard time. And I woke my wife up, and we talked about it a lot. And so, I didn't hear anything else from my father on this. As far as my father's concerned, and he didn't write me off. I mean, we went, but we never talked about it again. But as far as he was concerned, this was a major mistake, and I had messed myself up with every white person, every person that ever went to McCauley. It was over. He made it very clear. It's over. You won't come back with those people. You've made your bed. You're going to lie in it. That kind of thing. So, when 6 months later, I opened the paper, 6, 7, 8, I don't know, something like that. And it's 2 rows this big, real big. I don't know what kind of point that is, but, and it says, Downtown Chattanooga Kiwanis Club takes first black member. And I am so excited. I didn't know it. And there it is, and the business community, Kiwanis, the Rotary, but the Kiwanis Club has taken the first black member. And that means that the business community has made an opening. So, things are going to happen. Something's going to happen now. And I went to school, and I was giddy, and I knew the only man who could do it. His name was Marion Gaston. Went to McCauley School, same class with my father, an officer of one of the banks a vice president of one of the banks. At the end of the school day, I was so excited. I went down, I went down to his office, and the secretary said, Mr. McCauley, he's down in the parking lot. I went, found him, I put my hand out, and he knew me, and I knew his kids. They were my age. And I put my hand out and said, congratulations, Mr. Gaston. And he took my hand and shook it, and while we're shaking, he said, what for, son? Mr. Gaston, you're the only man I know who could get those 100 white men to take that first black member. He said, son, didn't you know? That was your father. That was your father. I burst out crying. I was stunned. Dad did that. I got in my car and I drove to McCauley. I found my father on the campus. He saw me coming. He saw me crying. He started crying. We hugged. He was 60 years of age. He said to me, honey, Franklin, I've been wrong all my life about black people. Next year, the Board of Trustees and I will integrate. McCauley School. He said, you and your brothers and your sister and your cousin, Jimmy McCauley, you've been also at McCauley, said, you all let me see it. You all changed me. You all let me understand. And I think my mother had more to do with it than we did. She made sense of it all for Dad. She came to the realization of where she ought to be in her Christian life. They put it in Christian terms because that's the way I'd put it back to him. And I think that's why he went back like that day, that first day. No, I don't think anybody ever put it to him that way. But it was that was one of the great days of my life.
When did your dad die?
He lived to 92. He lived 32 more years, and he and Mother integrated my church. My God, we kid about telling Mother, quit going out on the sidewalk grabbing black people and get them in on service. She about did that. They really brought black people into our church. They worked hard to get black people from the Orchard Knob area to come to their church and integrate. And Mother said to me for years, they both said, "Oh, Franklin, we were so wrong." My mother would sit sometimes in tears, holding my hand. We'd hold hands, we'd talk. She said, "Franklin, we were so wrong. We didn't know. We were so wrong. It was wrong. What we did was wrong. We didn't know." And I guess we did that a dozen times in those 20 years, just reminiscing and going over and saying, why did it happen? Why had the South allowed it? Why had we allowed it? Mainly, it was us. She was talking about her, Dad. Dad'd say the same thing. We were wrong. Dad, what he told me, that was wrong. I was wrong. I was just wrong. I didn't see it. You guys showed it to me. I was wrong. And their statement helped me. They no bones about it. They didn't sit there and say, I mean, they did say we were led by, we did that, but what they said individually, we were wrong. They didn't sit there and say, somebody else made me wrong. Somebody else did make us wrong because we believed everything everybody else taught us. That's what had happened. I believe what he had taught. He believed what his father taught. He believed all that stuff. And the culture all around us, all the time. All the time.
Tell me about your revelation. I know it's been said, and you don't have to go too far into it because I know it's been gone over, but that's an essential part of the story too. I didn't know about your dad's. I almost started crying on that one.
Well, and I want people to know about my dad because I give my dad enough credit for helping me be racist. My dad would say things like, when I do something stupid, he'd say, "Franklin, act like a white man." What do you mean, act like a white man? Well, you know what a white man, it's not acting like a colored man or an N. Although he didn't use the N-word. He heard me use the N-word one day, and he told me to stop because it hurt Lucille's feelings. Lucille was our maid who fed me, but I was racist. I was just racist. And I was 17, 18, I was still hoping that they wouldn't integrate Little Rock Central. I didn't understand why they didn't integrate. I bought Segregation Today, Yesterday, and Forever. And I can't tell you why I was so vehement about it. I didn't know I knew Lucille, and I knew black people on the campus, and they weren't bad. They weren't bad people. I knew Miss Lucy, who ran the cafeteria for Macaulay. I did also know that my mother and father had said, now, these are not normal black people. These are exceptional black people. There's a lot of black people out there very badly. And that we just aren't meant to be there. And they're meant to be our servants. And we're not meant to be together. In the 9th grade, when I was in the 9th grade, I'll tell you one about my mother. When I was in the 9th grade, I was going to a World Missions Conference, Presbyterian World Missions Conference. And my mother took me aside. I was going to go up with my Uncle Park, who founded Macaulay School. I was driving up with him and my aunt. And Mother took me aside, and she said, now look, you're going to run into a lady named Maida McCutcheon, who is the World Missions Director for the Presbyterian Church in the United States, the Southern Presbyterian Church, because they'd broken off from the Northern Presbyterian because of slavery. And she said, you're going to hear that to be Christian, you got to accept integration. It is not true. To be Christian, we do not have to accept integration. That's a mean statement. And that was said to me in 1954. I'm 14 years of age. And that statement stayed with me. I don't know, Jesus didn't demand that we be. I was born again, washed in the blood. Jesus didn't demand that we integrate. And that's, of course, what I was trying to say to Dad all those years later okay, so now I'm 20 years old. I'm at Rhodes College. Rhodes College was a Presbyterian college and in Memphis. 1961, the second year of the sit-ins. It's April 1961. The sit-ins, of course, had not been in Memphis. They'd been in Nashville and other places, Greensboro, North Carolina, Nashville, Fisk. But they weren't in Memphis, and I don't know what I'd have done if they'd been in Memphis. I certainly wouldn't have joined them. I certainly wouldn't. I wouldn't have gone and hurt anybody. I'm not going to go down there and put a cigarette butt on somebody's head or pour a Coke over their head. But if they'd been there, I might have gone with white friends to what? I don't know. But I certainly wouldn't have been with them. I wouldn't have been protesting. So one Sunday evening, our fellowship, our Christian fellowship, college fellowship, about 100 of us. One kid happened to be a fraternity brother of mine. And he wasn't a valedictorian, but he knew more than the rest of us. This one kid, Bill Davidson. Bill Davidson finally became a college professor. He said in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever it was, Sunday afternoon, we're going to go to Lemoyne College. Now it's Lemoyne Owen. Lemoyne College was an all-black college. Owen College was historically black. They got together, Lemoyne Owen. He said, we're going to Lemoyne College. And I raised my hand. I said, I'd heard of Lemoyne. I said, why are we going? He said, we're going to talk to the colored kids. I said, McCall, why are we going to talk to the colored kids? Franklin, we're going to go over and talk to the colored kids to get to see what they think. McCall, why do we care what they think? He said, you know what, Franklin? You're the one who needs to go to this trip. You're the one who really needs to go on this field trip. So 3 weeks later, because Bill said it. Now, this wasn't the college president. This wasn't a teacher. This wasn't a big group of kids. One kid in my school, in that college. I marvel at that still. One guy, Bill Davidson, stood up and said, we ought to do this. And he had made the connection with one kid over at Lemoyne Owen. So 70 of us get in cars and drive over to this college. And we get there a little bit before 2 o'clock. It's going to be from 2 to 5, 3 hours of dialogue. And when we get in there, and this has made an effect on me for these things, I don't ever let black and white people who hadn't seen each other get on different sides of the room and look at each other. One of the reasons is we went in and there were 70 chairs like this in a circle and 30 black kids already in their chairs. And we sat, that was a big circle. We sat down there and looked at each other.
So black and white?
Black and white. Yeah, they weren't spread out. And we stared at each other. We stared at each other. I hadn't looked at any black college kids. I'd never looked at a black kid my age. I'd seen them on the bus, but I didn't talk to them. I hadn't wanted to. I had no interest. I had white privilege. So we're looking at each other. We're staring at each other. We're really staring at each other. So Bill gets up, and a kid named, I've called him John. That's nice. I don't know who he is. I've looked for him. They get up, and John says, I want to welcome the kids from Rhodes College here. And Bill says, we're going to have a 3-hour dialogue. Here are the rules. Be honest, be courteous. Be honest, be courteous. Only 2 rules. John said, now here's what we're going to do. There's 70 white kids and 30 of us colored kids. Colored's what we use in town. We're going to go down. We've got 10 conference rooms, and we're going to get 7 whites and 3 coloreds in every single room. And truthfully, those rooms, I think, were built for about 8. That gave me a good idea. You got to get in there and get closer than what you want to. But we got in. I got in my little room. And there were two black males and one female. Charlotte, I don't remember this black male at all. But this guy, John, and this girl were so smart, so funny, so quick, so knowledgeable, so everything. And she was gorgeous. She was absolutely beautiful. I'd never seen a beautiful black girl. I'd never looked at a black girl. And I really did. I said, oh my goodness, I'm falling in love with a colored girl. This is terrible. But she was so funny, and she was so, and together, they were breaking the ice is what they would do. They'd talk with each other a little bit. Then they'd talk to one of us, and one of the white kids would say something. And they were so quick. They picked up so quick. It was great, but it was terrible on me. Because all of a sudden I realized these two black kids are smarter than I am. I really did. I'm the son of the headmaster of Macaulay School, one of the great prep schools in the South, maybe in the country, and these two colored kids are smarter than I am, and my father doesn't know it, and Macaulay School doesn't know it, and my church doesn't know it. In fact, there wasn't a white person in the South I knew who knew it. Nobody knew these two black kids were this smart, this quick, this funny, they didn't know it. I got irritated. I got irritated at them. See, I put it on them. They shouldn't be this smart. So I decided to say something. Now, I've got to say it nicely, though. Be honest and be courteous. Be honest and be courteous. Okay, I'm going to be honest. So I was honest. John Franklin, we had our name tags. Franklin? John, how come, now remember, this is 1961. This is 16 years after World War II. End of World War II, 1945. So John, tell me why the black troops, the American black troops, servicemen, in World War II didn't fight any better than they did. They surrendered, they gave up, they talked about it even the night before. They weren't. And John looked at me. I'm sure he was incredulous. I'm sure he might have been even seated, but he didn't show any of that. He just said to me, Franklin, he should have said to me, Franklin, that's the stupidest, dumb, he said, Franklin, where'd you hear that? And I said, my father told me. My father had told me. White troops had come back. My father didn't go. He had TB when he was small. He couldn't go to war, and plus he was headmaster of college school. So he said he had been told about black troops. He told me. I believed it. He told my father told me. I said, my father told me. Then the kid should have said, I look back and marvel. He could have said, your father's an idiot. He didn't say that. If he had said that, no more discussion. It would have cut it all off. He didn't say that. He said, you know what, Franklin? I don't think you and I know enough about this subject to talk intelligently about it. Save my face, save my father's face, no argument, no. And okay. He said, well, let me ask you something. You have anybody fought in World War II? Yeah, I had two uncles. One of them was at Pearl Harbor when it was bombed. The other one fought in the Philippines. He said, so did I. I had two uncles. Great. So what were your uncles fighting for? And I got righteously indignant. I really did. What do you mean, what were they fighting for? Freedom, democracy, pursuit of happiness. What? He said, so were my uncles. I said, great. He said, let me ask you something else. You ever shop in downtown Memphis? I said, shopping. We're talking about World War II. He said, so am I. If you hang with me, do you ever shop in downtown Memphis? Well, it turns out Uncle Park, the founder of Macaulay School, one of the brother of my grandfather, had sent me a $25 check 3 weeks before, and I'd gone down all Saturday, one Saturday, and shopped all day long. I said, yeah, I shopped. He said, did you stay all day? I said, yeah, I stayed all day. Did you eat? Eat lunch? Yeah, I ate lunch. Where'd you eat? Well, I ate Wars 5 and 10. Yeah, it's lunch counter, which that's what other people were sitting in on in the other cities. But, that's where I ate because I was. He said, my uncles now, we go downtown and shop. Great. We shop all day in Memphis. Great. He said, you know where we eat lunch? I thought about that. Boy, I sincerely tried to think about where they ate lunch. You don't eat with me. That's right. My uncles and I are the ones that fought in World War II for freedom and justice and pursuit of happiness. This is, Charlie, this one and the other one always hard on me. Always hard on me. We get on a bus and we ride 2 miles out of town to Colored Town to eat. Because none of the places we shop let us eat. And for the first time in my life, that was so clear to me. His uncles, who fought in World War II like my uncles, you tell my two uncles they couldn't eat where they shopped. They'd tear, I don't know where they'd tear that place up. They'd want to. And his uncles get on a bus and travel 2 miles out of and it hit me so hard, it hit me so fast. All of a sudden I saw it. And I was ashamed. I was angry. I had been told stuff about black, they're dumb, they're not nice, they're not good, they didn't fight well, they didn't, all this kind of crap. Well, I pulled back. And I didn't want to say anything else. I didn't want to ask another question. I didn't want to. But John wouldn't let me go. I said, Frank, did you go to the bathroom while you were there? Yeah, I went to the bathroom. I said, where'd you go to the bathroom? I said, I go anywhere else. I said, you know, where my uncle said I went to the bathroom. So we get on a bus. We ride 2 miles out of town to Colored Town to go to the bathroom. There's no stores where we shop. Let's go to the bathroom. I left that afternoon. I went to my door. I lay down in my bed. I sobbed for 3 hours. I cried. I sobbed. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I was angry. I was angry at every white person. I was angry at my parents for lying to me. I was angry at my church. I was angry. I was really angry at me. I'm a 20-year-old. I'm not dumb. I'm not stupid. And I'd believed all that stuff. I'd believed every single crappy thing I'd ever been told. All those lies about black people. And I looked at all those times when I was in control over black people, even as the 10-year-old little boy getting on that bus with all those black people in the back and thinking I was the stuff. I saw it all. Now, I always say at this point, I let everybody know I was not working very hard at college. I didn't know why do I want to go back and teach at Macaulay if I'm not willing to work very hard. I wasn't working very hard. But I went over the next day, talked to the dean of men who had gone to Macaulay himself with my father, in my father's class. Another one in my father's class. I said, this is crazy. This is crazy. We're studying English, math, science, all this stuff, and right across the street, we don't know those people. And that week I dropped out. Came home. Worked at Erlanger for a little while, for 3 months. Tried to have black friends, couldn't do it. Went to the Navy. 2 years I tried to make black friends in the Navy. Those guys wouldn't be my friend. This big white guy with this big southern accent, they didn't trust me. Came out, married my childhood sweetheart, married Teresa. I've known her since I was 13, she was 12. We hadn't dated that long, but we dated high school years. Went to Baltimore, finished college. She put me through, taught 2 years in the state of Maryland because I promised the state, you put me through, I'll pay, that's the way they did it. I'll pay 2 years of mine. They paid me for teaching, but I did have to teach 2 years. Next year, went to Boston, went to Harvard, got my master's. Had my first black friend at Harvard, young woman, young black female. We were friends. We were actual friends. Never had a black friend. Then came back, and then, you know the rest of the story. That's the summer that. And by the way, there is something interesting. While I'm at Harvard, finishing up, my brother, Spencer, older brother, who later becomes Headmaster McCauley, and a bunch of McCauley classmates of his who are going to my old church, Central Presbyterian Church, they write me and say, we want to found the first integrated playground on our playground, our church playground this summer. We want you, we know you're coming back. You've said you're coming back. We want you to run it for us, because that education and playground and camp work, I'd worked at McCauley Camp for 6 years, gone to it for 17 years at McCauley Camp. I knew camp work. So I said, that'd be fine. They said, we'll pay you. You know, it's a paid job. We'll be right out there in the pay. So I came, and when I got back and was going to open it up, because Orchard Knob had turned black. White people had left. They'd going up the mountain and so on. The church didn't, well, it had a few more years to go, but eventually it closed down because they didn't have enough black people to keep it open, and the white people all left. But when I got back, my brother and the young, they call themselves the Young Turks, because the old session had voted to allow them to do it, but no money should go. And so they said, we'll pay it ourselves. And so that class chipped in their own private funds. It doesn't church. And they sent the edict to me. If it rains, on a day that rains, the white kids come in and the black kids go home. And I said, you guys got to be kidding. They said, oh, Franklin, we don't mean that. We are charged with telling you that. We're just telling you. That's what the session has said, the elders of the church. They voted that. That's up to you, as far as we're concerned. Well, the first day it rained, everybody went in. But the session didn't come down. They weren't going to come down to church, see those black kids. They won't stay as far away from that as possible. We had cars, though, that stopped on Macaulay Avenue to look and see what was going on. We had little black and white kids playing together. By the way, First Centenary under Nina Hale, N-I-N-A, Nina Hale, was also founding interracial playground that summer. I didn't know it until halfway through the summer. Then we both got together and realized we had founded First Centenary Methodist, and Central Presbyterian had founded the first. Well, here's why I tell you the story. Because at one time, I am so turned off by that session, I write a letter and I say, I'm leaving this church. This is over for me. How can you say the white kids come in, the black kids go out? How in the rain? What are you talking about? So they send the old minister. He'd been my minister in the younger years. Then he had retired, and now they didn't have a minister, so they called him back in the interim. He came to visit me in the house my wife and I were renting when we'd come back here, St. Elmo. And he said, now, Franklin, I want to talk to you about, we want you to stay in the church. And so I said, Dr. Kauser, I can't stay in the church when they're doing that. Here's a group of men who are saying that Noah cursed Ham because Ham laughed at his drunkenness, and his descendants will be the servants. They're still saying that. And Dr. Kauser said to me, oh no, Franklin. Oh, we don't say that anymore. Oh, our church doesn't say that anymore. I said, Dr. Kauser, I think they do. He said, no, Franklin. And he was I don't know, in his 80s maybe. He was saying, they don't say that anymore, Franklin. No. You don't have to worry about that. Well, 2 weeks later, they called a session meeting to talk about how this program was going, whether they were going to allow it again. And in the middle of the session meeting, when I was talking about having the kids come in and so on, being fair to black kids, one of the old elders got up and said, now we remember that in the book of Genesis, it talks about Noah who cursed his son Ham and said his, and the Dr. Kauser said, the old minister said, no, John, we're not, no, John, we don't believe that anymore. We don't believe that anymore. You know, I thought, there it is, Dr. Kauser. You've seen it. 1968. Thousands of years ago, whatever 1,000 years ago, we're buying this? Come on. The stuff we believe, the stuff we're willing to believe, the stuff, the culture. And that's one of the things I've been trying to say to white friends. I said it in '68, got a lot of abuse for it. Still say it today. Guys, it's still around us. Don't you understand somebody who calls President Obama the N-word? Don't you understand he's stuck in the old culture? I mean, you want to say he's terrible, you want to say this, but to call him the N-word? He hadn't gotten out of the old culture. He hadn't broken with it. To wave the Confederate flag and say, oh, it's my heritage? What? Slavery? Come on. And they'll do anything but say slavery. Anyway, that's it. That's what happened.
It's what was I going to ask you? Something I was wondering earlier. This has nothing to do with what you were just talking about. Is this a Victorian house? What's the style? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know what it's Victorian. I've never even asked Teresa.
I'm curious. Why have you ever thought about opening it up after the shootings? After the shootings in
Ferguson.
July.
Yeah. And we started a year before the shootings. We started a year before Ferguson. We weren't reacting to Ferguson. It was.
What have you ever considered opening it up to Hispanics or to other races, other nationalities, other?
Sure, and it's been said to us. The first year, nobody ever asked us that question. First year, everybody understood black, white, black, white, black, white. Mm-hmm. Since then, people have talked about Hispanic. What are you doing with Hispanic? My tendency is to want to say, well, what are you doing with anybody?
Right.
You know, I get a little bit uptight when they ask me the question because the people who are asking me are not the ones who are doing anything.
Right.
I said, but here's the real reason. The thing that we haven't done is what we've suffered with from before the Civil War is black-white. That's our biggest issue. Yes, I wish I spoke Spanish. I wish I could bring Hispanics in. And the Hispanics that worked on this house, it's Hispanic people who did this porch. And it's Hispanic people who did the roof. They were great. They were terrific. Also, I see down the road Muslim and so on and so on. We've certainly had Jewish and Christian and atheist and agnostic. And nobody's told me who's atheist, agnostic. I'm just sure some of them are. Jewish, I know, our Jewish friends and our Christian friends. Should we have this talk with everybody? Certainly we should. Tell you, it's going to be harder to do the socioeconomic. Thus far, it's been all middle class. These are all professionals. But one of the reasons we've done that is because we want professionals in the executive offices, and we don't have that. We hadn't gotten it yet. And we've got to get those executives. And we've had some great examples of people who've come, black people who've come here with the degrees and with the skills, and we've put them with some people, and they today have those jobs. It's happened because they came here. And I'm delighted with that. I feel great about that.
What kind of jobs?
Well, here's one. This is funny. I think it's funny. We went to the Hunter Museum for string theory, the thing that Lee University, Dr. Gloria Chin, pianist, comes down to Hunter Museum 4, 5, 6 times a year and has quartets, and so just outstanding. 150 white people, almost never a black in the group. This night, there was one lovely black woman, probably in her 50s, sitting on the last row, not close to any of the white people. Teresa turned to me, my wife, and said, Franklin, go back and get her and bring her up here. Get her to sit with us. So I went back and said, hi, you scared to sit with the white folks up here? smiling, and she looked at me, said, "No, I'm not scared to sit with the white folks." I said, "Well, come on up here and sit with us. I'm Franklin McCauley. Here's my wife. Come on up. What's her name?" She told me. She came up and sat with us. Afterwards, we talked. We became friends. We introduced her to Mel Cooper, my cousin, Eleanor's husband. Mel, for 38 years, was the fundraiser, the development officers for Macaulay School. He raised millions for Macaulay. In talking with this young woman, I say young woman, she's in her 50s, but I say young woman. In talking with her, we found out she had moved only 6 months before from another city to come to a job here, and the job hadn't panned out because it wasn't what she thought, and it didn't match her skills, and her skills were development. She had been in development in another city, and she thought she was going to do that at this place, and that isn't what they needed, so it didn't. So she now had no job, and she was here. I put her with Mel. Said, "Mel, I really want." We had a little dinner and so on. They started talking. Mel talked with her for about an hour. Came back and said to Teresa and me, "This woman's the real thing. She knows development. She is good. She has done this in her former city. We need to get her in it." He got her to somebody else who got her a 3-month temporary job in development, because that's the way they gave out that job. At the end of the 3 months, they decided they wanted her for another 3 months. At the end of that 3 months, they hired her as a professional executive in development for that nonprofit. And after a year there, she's been invited on a very prestigious nonprofit board. I do not know how many blacks on that board, but not many, if any, except maybe her. And we're not surprised at all. That's the way that happens. 1970, Carl Rowan, great columnist, black columnist for the Washington Post, comes to Chattanooga, gives a talk, 500 people there, mostly white, and he says, that's 1970, he says, "You white people are asking us, black people, why we're not on your executive boards and why we're not execs in your corporations. It's because you hand those jobs out on the golf course. We never see them. You don't advertise them. You say, hey, you know anybody who can be vice president for so-and-so? So, oh, yeah, my nephew." They're not saying nieces, by the way. Mm-hmm. "My nephews, just come and have him. Yeah, it'd be great." And you hire them. We never see that job. We never know it's open. And that's what we know is happening today. It's still happening. He called it the circle of gossip. Carl Rowan said it's a circle of gossip. We're not in your circle of gossip. We got to get more black people who are trained, who are skilled, in the circle of gossip. So that really, look, our first mission here is to form friendships. It really is. That's what this is about, getting to have friends. What we're hoping from the friendships will be the circle of gossip and the richness of life that we're seeing in the leadership team, and knowing each other and not being afraid of each other and passing along the information that comes when you say to a friend, "By the way, I've heard about a so-and-so job," and the black person says to you, "I'm looking for something else. Have you heard about it?" "Oh, yeah. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said they got it." And that's the way, if we could do that,
it would eventually trickle down.
It would. Yes. I hate to use trickle down because of the terrible connotation out of the Reagan years.
Right.
But yes, that would make a difference in getting the right people. And you get more black people in the jobs, just like we get more Hispanic people in the jobs, just like we get more Muslim people in the jobs. If we can do that, then in fact, we can start crossing these lines.
Which makes me think of that article in the paper the other day. The disparities.
The disparities.
Here,
yeah.
That still exist. Because I was wondering, because when I thought about that, I thought, well, I don't know what the socioeconomic
It's terrible.
status. Well, I was thinking like in your group, I was like, it looks like
Oh,
we're all kind of like middle class, and
It's
so
very
that
middle
was
class.
I was wondering about that. But Bill had said something about that too in our discussions.
Yeah.
He said, no. It's like, and I didn't even ask him. He just brought it up. That is on purpose. Like that is planting seeds. Is kind of, I don't think he may not use that term, but
look,
I was like,
it's why I invited Bobby Adams, why Teresa and I invited Bobby Adams. When we came to town, we asked Moses Freeman, give me a black contractor and a black architect. He said, I cannot give you a black architect who does this kind of work in the old neighborhoods, but I can give you a black contractor who does. His name is Bobby Joe Adams, and he's from Ottawa. He's done this kind of thing. He's done houses in your neighborhood. He has right over here and on 9th Street. He said, he's great. Interviewed him, hired him, got the young white contractor, architect who had worked in areas like this. And the rest of it, because I knew Bobby Adamson was going to bring in black people. And he did. For instance, his son. Now, Bobby Adamson is getting better contracts. I'd like to think that some of it is because he worked for us and the word has gone out. I put the word out about him a lot. I have talked to everybody, told people here, especially that first year or two. He and his wife came to every single one of our things, and Charles did too. And in each meeting, I'd say, this is a paid political advertisement. This is the man who did this house. You like this house? This is Bobby Joe Adamson right here. I did it on purpose. Everybody knew why I was doing it. I wanted people to know. I wanted somebody. I've had calls. Did you really like that guy like he said? Yes, I did. Could he do the job? He did the job. And he's gotten better stuff. He's gotten more contracts.
I've had a lot of interest in 9th Street, and have done a lot of research over the years. Do you know William Price? I've already asked you that.
You did. I don't know that I know William Price. I don't know who. I'm not sure who he is.
He's a musician, still plays. Black guy, played on 9th Street in the 60s, plays jazz. And he still plays, and he's done a lot of work with... He has these portfolios, they're photo albums of kind of his life, and his life playing on 9th Street, and basically just all over Chattanooga.
Yeah.
And we've talked... I've done a couple articles on him and the music in 9th Street, integration, segregation. I just kind of, as you've talked, I keep going back to the Big Nine and kind of all that. I mean, you're familiar with all
Yeah,
that.
and I may know him, and I may have met him. I don't know that I would have ever heard him on 9th Street. One, I didn't go down to 9th Street during that time. Two, I was teaching.
Right.
And English teaching means grading papers.
Right.
Plus, I was running the downtown Chattanooga dialogue group. Moses and I did that, along with Spencer's wife, Sarah, and some other people. Did it for a year and a half, and then it fell apart. It fell apart because the black people we had coming, we didn't expand it like we're expanding here. Mm-hmm. We had many of the same whites who cared, many of the same blacks who cared. Finally, black people said, you know what, I can't give any more time to this. I'm tired of coming talking to whites, trying to sell them on they should like black people. And I said, if you don't come, I don't have anybody to talk to. I mean, I can get whites here, but if you don't come, they don't want to talk to me, they want to talk to black people. Mm-hmm. And the white people who were coming, they got tired and said, we can't. And we weren't drawing any new white people. Listen, the tone, at least the tone is different today. When we put out the word, we're going to have black and white people here, we get people who want to come. 68, we weren't getting many people who wanted to come. 69, Brainerd High School blew up over the flag issue and the fact that the mascot was the colonel and the Dixie was the fight song and the flag was the Confederate flag and the uniform. And that place blew up, and for a while we were doing a lot of meetings to help try to mediate that. We were meeting with the principal out there. And when that was through, nobody wanted to talk about it anymore. What are you talking about? Everything's going to be okay. We've made it now through the civil rights era. Martin Luther King has died. Bobby Kennedy is dead. It's done. Even with Macaulay School is now integrating. Baylor, by the way, Dad called Baylor, GPS and Bright School, and said, we're going. Do you want to go with us? And they all said, yes, let's do it together. We want to do it with you. That was Dad. That was my father who called him. At any rate, when we came back, when Trish and I came back in 2012, we bought the house in 2011. We came back June of 2012. We'd retired. We'd sold our house there. We came back, and that's when we found out there almost wasn't any movement from 1971 when we left. Where's the movement? That's what amazed us. That knocked us over, shocked us. Where is the movement? Now there was some, St. Paul's was doing some things, some of the churches doing, but for the most part, and you read the statistics, they're terrible. And when we first got back in, James Mapp, who was still alive, president, who had taken the presidency of the NAACP again at 90 years of age because nobody else wanted it. He said, I was amazed. He said, Franklin, no, he didn't say it to me. He said it in the paper. He said it at a street meeting on the steps of City Hall. I heard him say it. We're worse off today than we were when we were in the civil rights movement in the 60s. I thought, could that be? Well, look at the statistics. It seems we are. That's awful. So, when people ask some of my black friends, why are you pushing so hard? Dr. Linda Wiley, who was the former TVA director of diversity, she says, I guess pushing so hard just sort of depends on which side of the line you're on, doesn't it? If you're white, we can sit here for a little while and talk about this thing, can't we? If you're black, the time for talk's over. Come on. And I've had to try to persuade white people. White people say, well, it's got to be better than it used to be. Why, it's better than it used to be. I'm sure it's better than it used to be. Why, well, it's not. And white privilege? You talk to them about white privilege? Well, I did it on my own. I did it on my own. You did what on your own? You weren't white? You didn't face the world being white? You didn't come out there on the street and know you're white and you don't worry about certain things that black people worry about? And you know what? It's hard to get some of them to say. I hadn't been able to do it. But some black people here, CBS, go back and look at that, with my friend Curtis Baggett, who worked at Macaulay, who says, when a black man said here to him, I'm followed around in the mini mart, and Curtis says, in 2015, Curtis says, I had never thought about that before. He's just a nice, wonderful, middle-class guy, white guy. And he said, I never thought about black people being followed around in the mini mart. No concept of that. It's just amazing that they had no concept. I'm going to let you go, and we got to finish up. Now, I want to ask you this. Have you ever heard that story that I've told about Manchester, Tennessee? You ever heard that?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Is this what? I don't think so. Start telling it and I'll tell you if I...
You know what? It's such a long story. There are a lot of stories that count. I'm going to leave that one out.
Okay. As I write this, because I'm going to transcribe all these interviews, and I got to start piecing it together, figuring out like a puzzle how it's going to fit together. I may follow up. I will most likely follow up on some things. I'll be in touch kind of throughout this process. I wanted to get all my interviews down first before I started kind of cracking at it.
You got far more than you could ever
I know.
write about.
To be honest, I'm a little intimidated by it.
Sure, you got far more than you can ever. I mean, look at how long we've talked,
I know.
and I know you've already talked to the others, and see, that's that. Truthfully, what we've just done. You know, I really have told this story, and Joan McLean did such a great job also in the Times Free Press, and I keep hearing from all over the place. I keep hearing from all over St. Louis and different places. I've read that article. And I really am very delighted that you talked so extensively to the other people. And I think, I still feel, the thing I feel good about is, I don't think you'd have gotten that good talk with the others if I hadn't said to you what I really believe. What I really believed is, don't write about me again, write about them. Mm-hmm. And you did it. And I think you've seen something, I think you can document something that a lot of other people can't because they haven't, son.
Yeah.
CBS did a little of that with Curtis Baggett. Mm-hmm. When Elaine Kano said, is this intimidating? And Curtis says, it's liberating. I found out what a black man said. And boy, that's exactly what we're trying to do here. Because I've had some white cousins in here who've gone off, who've never believed me fully. Just didn't believe me. Just didn't buy it. And have walked out of this house and said, I need to hear that. That was the best thing I could ever heard. They didn't say, okay, we're with you. They didn't say, we believe everything you said. They didn't say, we're in the fight with. They didn't say that. They said, I need to hear that.
Is there anybody else you think I should talk to? And I've talked to a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I think you've gotten some great people. I mean, every single person would be wonderful. You lost one person. We lost one person. King Oehmig. Oehmig. King Oehmig died at 63 years of age. He was a minister. He's the Baylor golf coach for 30 years. His father was Lou Oehmig, the great golf player here in Chattanooga. He up and died. He was fishing, and he died of a heart attack. And he had been here. I just met him, and he was wonderful. And he wrote an article. It would be worth your while to go to the Times Free Press, to King Oehmig, K-I-N-G-O-E-H-M-I-G, and Dr. Linda Wiley, W-I-L-E-Y. Their article, my article, was October 5th, 2014. October 5th. And my article was entitled, as it's in Chattanooga Connected, my article was entitled, The Privilege and Burden of Franklin McCulley. Mm-hmm. Their article followed that 2 weeks later. So, 14 days, the 19th of October, 2014. What Joan McLean told me was, we'll let you all do 2 columns, with the perspectives. Mm-hmm. So there's perspectives. And Linda's the one who said, one, she tells a terrific story about herself, no, a terrible story about herself. But then she's the one who says, I guess it depends on which side you're on, how fast we're going. And King tells this wonderful story about why white people down there in Americus, Georgia, don't understand why Fuller, I think his name was Fuller, who founded Habitat, why they don't understand when Fuller talks to them about the poor people. These white people say to Fuller back in the 30s, I guess, you know about these poor people, poor black people, we never see them. He says, meet me tomorrow. And he takes them to a place they've never been. In Americus, Georgia. They all live right there in Americus, Georgia. And these guys said, well, I never saw a house like that. He said, you don't ride this street. You go this street to your club, and this street to your work, and this street to your church, and this street to your home, and this street to your, you don't ride this street. It is a beautiful. King Emmett would have been so wonderful for you to talk to. Linda Wiley would too, but she's now living in Atlanta. She doesn't always get up here. So I mean, she's brilliant.
I'll look that up.
It'd be well worth you looking up.
Okay. Do you have any more? Well, I can ask this over email, but I'd love to attend.
Do I have anything? Oh, you mean,
more?
are we having any more?
Yeah.
We won't have until March, and that's on purpose. That's also intentional.
Okay.
But there are two reasons. We used to have, I was having them August, then November, and then the spring. And we were having 2, 2, and 2. This last time for August, I had 3. So we had 180 people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of them were the team, so it wasn't 180 new people, but anyway. But I leave I set it all up, and we had Thursday. That's when you came.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday. And then I take the chairs all back, so. And I call all those people and so on. This November, 2 things going to happen. One, we're going to take off, a cousin's given us a condo down in Florida. But that's not the main thing. The main thing is, I don't want to do it and have people think Franklin and Teresa are going to always do it.
All right.
We started them off. Now we want, there have been a couple people said, well, when are you going to have the next one? So, well, we're going to have it in March. Now, in the meantime, can you have one? Or can you have, and they're starting, and people are saying, well, you mean you're not going to have one for, I said, well, no, have you thought about, well, maybe Judy and I could get together, and they're doing it.
Stacy's doing one, or did she already do one?
Well,
she mentioned that she was going to do one with an officer.
Nathan Vaughn.
Yes.
Nathan and Dana Vaughn. He's Captain Nathan Vaughn, and she is Assistant Chief Dana Vaughn.
Okay.
And they're a married couple, and they live out there on near Moore Road in Brainerd. All right, she was going to do it, and she was going to do it. She did last Thursday.
Okay.
Either last Thursday, this comes. I think last Thursday, and we were out. I don't know how it went. I hope it went just great. Dolly and Sue and Judith Peterson Ben and Sue. Oh my goodness! Don't tell Sue I've just lost her last. Dolly Hamlin. They've done 4 together, and they've done them at Judith's house, Sue's house, Dolly's house, back to Judith's house. And the difference in there, those 15 people in that said, we don't want any more people. We want to meet every time. So they're doing that. That's their group. And so Teresa and I, see, if Teresa and I keep doing, nobody else is going to do. And that is what we got in mind. It's like I said to that lady. I was sitting right here, and Elaine Cano said, what else you got to do? I said, if it stays here, it ain't going to go. Got to move.
So I shouldn't have a problem finding another one if I want to go.
You might have a problem, but we'll send you to Curtis Baggett. Kathy wants to do one. Call Catherine, see if she's doing one.
All right.
Curtis Baggett. You have Curtis's number?
I don't think so.
Yeah, give it to you. Maybe I should call Curtis. Well, listen, you just call. Let's call Curtis and say who you are.
Okay.
Because Curtis did say to me, Curtis, let me see, did he say on? Anyway, here's Curtis Baggett. And they are, by the way, they're going out of town for a while, October 3rd. You better call them tomorrow.
Okay.
They're 423 number.
Okay.
488-3931.
Okay.
Oh, here's the better number. This is the home
Okay.
number. It's a 423 also.
Okay.
240-1558. Call that one. That's the one where you get them.
Okay. Because they're gonna, when I get this written and when it gets, I mean, they're gonna want to take pictures. They're gonna want to take video if people are comfortable with that.
Well, our
And I don't know.
Our group is. Boy, the 19th would have been great for that, but it's okay. It's okay. There'll be another one.
Okay. I got a lot of work to do.
When does your is it online or
Bitter Southerner?
Yeah.
It's all online.
all online?
It's not print.